3 days before the first race of the season, Red Bull made a move that has rival teams running simulations overnight. Not a flashy new wing. Not a dramatic redesign. Something far more unsettling. Because leaked information suggests the RB22 arriving in Australia is not just fast. It is optimized to exploit the new FIA monitoring rules. And that changes everything. In Bahrain testing, engineers quietly labeled the Ford RB22 the efficiency benchmark. Strong top speed. Minimal energy clipping. Clean deployment curves. Now, just days before the Australian Grand Prix, Red Bull has refined the energy maps again. No new hardware. Just recalibrated power delivery tailored for Albert Park's stop-and-go layout. Smoother torque on exit. Smarter overtake logic. Energy release shaped to stay inside regulatory thresholds while maximizing acceleration. And here is the dangerous part. When a team does not need a major upgrade before race 1, it means their real upgrade already worked. Verstappen is publicly downplaying their chances, saying they still need a step forward. But when has he ever revealed his full confidence before lights out? If these refinements perform the way internal data suggests, the psychological battle of the championship could shift in Melbourne before the season even settles. Subscribe now, because what Red Bull might quietly demonstrate in Australia could define the entire year. What makes this situation even more intense is the timing. We are not mid-season. We are not 10 races deep. We are days away from the first Grand Prix of the year. Australia. The opener. The race that sets the tone for everything that follows. And Red Bull is not arriving desperate. They are arriving prepared. The RB22 that will roll out in Melbourne is fundamentally the same machine that already impressed in Bahrain. Extreme side pods designed to aggressively channel airflow toward the rear. A revised floor concept that maximizes ground effect stability. A rear end refined for drag reduction without sacrificing balance. That package was not experimental. It was deliberate. And most importantly, it already worked. This is not a team searching for answers. This is a team fine-tuning details. And details win championships. While other teams are still analyzing correlation data, Red Bull is adjusting performance styles. Small cooling tweaks for Australian conditions. Minor floor refinements adapted to the specific asphalt and corner profile of Albert Park. Subtle aerodynamic balance changes to ensure stability through medium speed direction changes. Nothing dramatic, but nothing accidental. And here is where it becomes strategic. Instead of introducing a visible Spec B and attracting immediate scrutiny, Red Bull is refining the existing package. That sends a powerful message. They trust their foundation. They believe the concept is strong enough. And in Formula One, confidence in your base design is everything. Because when your core architecture is right, upgrades multiply performance. When it is wrong, upgrades only hide flaws. But there is another layer that most fans overlook. The first race is about information control. If you show too much, rivals respond aggressively. If you show too little, they miscalculate. Red Bull's current posture feels calculated. Stable car. Optimized power unit mapping. Controlled public messaging from Verstappen. No dramatic claims. No bold predictions. Just quiet preparation. And that silence is louder than any press release. Because when a team capable of dominance chooses subtlety before race 1, it usually means they do not need theatrics to prove a point. And Melbourne may be the first moment where that quiet confidence becomes visible to everyone. But now we reach the part that truly has teams nervous. Because performance is one thing. Control is another. And what Red Bull appears to have achieved with the Ford RB22 is not just raw speed. It is controlled efficiency. During Bahrain testing, something stood out to rival engineers. The Red Bull did not show aggressive energy clipping at the end of long straights. It did not surge violently and then fade. It accelerated smoothly. Consistently. Lap after lap. That kind of energy behavior is extremely difficult to perfect under modern regulations. And this season, the FIA is watching energy deployment more closely than ever. Active aero transitions are under tighter supervision. Overtake mode deltas are monitored. Energy release patterns are analyzed. Which means the margin for error is smaller. So instead of pushing boundaries recklessly, Red Bull refined the way power is delivered. Not less power. Smarter distribution. Instead of one dramatic spike, the RB22 now appears to release energy in a more progressive curve. That makes the acceleration look natural. Less suspicious. But still devastatingly effective. And in Australia, that matters more than anywhere else. Albert Park is a rhythm circuit. Heavy braking into slow corners. Short bursts of acceleration. Medium-length straights where deployment timing is critical. If you waste energy early in the lap, you pay the price at the end. If you clip too aggressively, you lose defensive capability. So Red Bull adjusted the torque maps. They adapted recovery settings for repeated braking zones. They shaped deployment logic to ensure availability where overtakes actually happen. No new hardware. Just refined intelligence. And that refinement could be the difference between qualifying pace and race dominance. Now think about the psychological impact. If Ferrari sees similar qualifying times on Saturday, they will feel encouraged. If Mercedes appears close over one lap, confidence grows. But if on Sunday the RB22 begins to pull away gradually, not dramatically, just consistently, that changes the narrative instantly. Because consistency is harder to solve than a sudden spike. You cannot copy consistency overnight. You cannot fix efficiency with a quick wing adjustment. And here is another crucial element. Verstappen's driving style thrives on predictability. When he feels stable rear traction, he attacks braking zones later. When deployment feels linear, he commits earlier on exit. That synergy between driver confidence and mechanical refinement is what wins opening races. And if he senses that control from the first laps in Melbourne, the tone of the championship could shift immediately. But remember something important. This is still the consolidated version of the RB22. Major development steps are expected later in the season. Which means if this current configuration is already competitive, the ceiling might still be significantly higher. And that possibility is what truly unsettles the paddock. Because Australia is not just about who wins. It is about who shows they understand their car completely. And if Red Bull demonstrates that level of understanding in race 1, the message will be clear. They are not reacting to the new season. They are shaping it. And this is where Australia stops being just the first race and starts becoming a statement. Because season openers are never neutral. They create momentum. They shape headlines. They influence how aggressively teams develop over the next few months. If Red Bull dominates visibly, rivals panic. If Red Bull wins quietly, methodically, without revealing everything, rivals worry even more. And that is the scenario that feels increasingly possible. Think about the strategic layers here. The RB22 already introduced its major aerodynamic philosophy in testing. Extreme side pod architecture. An aggressive floor concept. Rear-end efficiency designed to minimize drag while protecting stability. That foundation is locked in. Melbourne is not about redesign. It is about extraction. Extracting more efficiency from the same hardware. Extracting more control from the same power unit. Extracting more performance without triggering regulatory attention. And that last point matters more than people realize. Because if the Ford RB22 truly is the benchmark in both power and efficiency, the FIA will monitor every acceleration trace carefully. Every deployment spike. Every overtake activation. Every aero transition. So Red Bull's solution appears surgical. Deliver performance in a way that looks ordinary. No exaggerated speed trap headlines. No dramatic deltas. Just relentless pace. Lap after lap. And if that approach works in Melbourne, something subtle but powerful happens. Ferrari and Mercedes are forced into a dilemma. Do they respond with aggressive upgrades early, risking instability? Or do they stay patient, risking falling behind in the standings? Early season psychology can push teams into development decisions they later regret. And Red Bull knows that. Now let us consider Verstappen again. He thrives when the car feels predictable. When braking stability is strong, he goes deeper into corners. When traction is consistent, he commits earlier on throttle. When energy deployment is linear, he times overtakes with precision rather than desperation. If Melbourne confirms that the RB22 gives him that platform, then we are not just looking at a competitive car. We are looking at a controlled weapon. And here is the detail that may define the entire opening chapter. This is not the final evolution of the RB22. The serious development steps are expected later. Which means Australia might reveal a car operating below its ultimate ceiling. If that version is already capable of fighting at the front, the long-term implications are enormous. Because development in Formula One compounds. A strong baseline accelerates future gains. A weak baseline slows everything. And Red Bull appears confident in theirs. So when the lights go out in Melbourne, watch carefully. Not just for who leads into Turn 1. Not just for qualifying headlines. Watch for race rhythm. Watch for energy behavior at the end of stints. Watch for how effortlessly the RB22 manages tires compared to its rivals. Because if it looks calm, if it looks composed, if it looks controlled, then the real story of Australia will not be about a dramatic new part. It will be about confirmation. Confirmation that Red Bull started the season exactly where they wanted to be. And if that is true, the rest of the grid may already be chasing a moving target.